I deserve better.
You'll regret this.
Soft whispers filled the chapel, a fragile calm before the storm. Ethan sat beneath a sweeping arch of white roses, his hands gripping the sides of his wheelchair. His heart thudded against his chest like a drum. He tried to steady his breath as the wedding march swelled. Then he saw her. Vanessa glided down the aisle in a sparkling gown, every eye drawn to her. Her lips curved into a faint smile, but her eyes, cold, distant, almost unfamiliar. A chill brushed Ethan's spine. Something was wrong. He pushed the thought away. "It's just nerves," he told himself. The officiant began speaking, his voice echoing gently through the hall. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, painting the floor in soft colors. For a moment, it looked perfect, like the kind of day Ethan had dreamed of during all those endless nights in the hospital. In his mind, memories flashed like quick cuts in a film. 2 years ago, screeching tires, shattered glass, pain that swallowed everything. Lying in a hospital bed, doctors shaking their heads, Vanessa leaning over him, whispering, "I'll never leave you. We'll get through this." Her tears had felt like promises, months of therapy, sweat and pain, learning to live in the chair, her hands on his shoulders, encouraging him. The proposal, clumsy but heartfelt, her yes filling his broken world with light again. Back in the present, Ethan blinked away the tears forming in his eyes. He turned toward her with a shaky smile. When it was his turn to speak, his voice trembled. "Vanessa," he began, every word pulled from the deepest part of him. "You stood by me when the world fell apart. You saw me at my weakest and loved me anyway. Today, I don't just marry the woman I love. I marry my best friend, my miracle." The guests sniffled softly. His mother dabbed her eyes. Lucas, his best man, gave him an encouraging nod. Ethan reached out his hand. Vanessa took it slowly, her fingers stiff in his palm. Then it was her turn. The officiant gestured toward her, smiling. "Vanessa?" She didn't speak. A hush fell over the crowd. Her bouquet shook slightly in her grip. Seconds stretched. Ethan's chest tightened. "Go ahead," he whispered. "It's okay." She exhaled sharply, then pulled her hand back. The movement was sudden, almost sharp. Murmurs rippled through the guests. She took a step back. Her cold gaze swept over Ethan, over the wheelchair, over the expectant faces staring at her. "I can't do this," she said flatly. The officiant froze. "Excuse me?" She let out a low laugh, a sound dripping with bitterness. "I can't marry a man who can't even stand up for me." The words slammed into the room like a bomb. Gasps erupted. Someone dropped a program. Lucas shot up from his seat. Ethan just stared at her, his brain refusing to register what he'd heard. Vanessa turned to the crowd, her voice growing louder, bolder. "I tried. I really did. But I can't spend the rest of my life pushing him around, pretending everything's fine. I deserve more than pity." Her cruelty echoed against the church walls. Ethan's mouth opened, but no sound came out. His hands trembled against the wheels. He felt the weight of every single stare piercing his skin. Pity, shock, judgment, and then the final blow. The doors at the back opened, and Derek walked in. Tall, confident, wearing a smug grin. The wealthy ex-boyfriend Ethan thought was long gone. Vanessa's lips curled. She dropped the bouquet to the floor with a careless flick, stepped toward Derek, and slipped her arm into his like it belonged there. "I choose this," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Together, they turned and walked down the aisle. Not as bride and groom, but as a pair leaving destruction behind. Whispers rose like a storm. Cameras clicked. Someone gasped, "Oh my God!" Ethan sat frozen under the arch. The music had stopped. The flowers seemed to wilt in the silence. His heart pounded in his ears. He could hear the heavy wooden doors closing behind them. Slam. Sound echoed through his chest like a verdict. Ethan's hands clenched, the wheels until his knuckles went white. His jaw quivered. His eyes burned, not with tears alone, but with something deeper. Shock, humiliation, a pain so raw it left him breathless. Around him, the guests stood awkwardly, some whispering, some avoiding his gaze. But inside Ethan's world, everything had gone silent. He stared at the doors they'd just walked through, his body still, his mind screaming a single question. What now? The wedding bells faded into a steady, mechanical beeping. Cold, sterile air replaced the scent of flowers. Ethan's eyes fluttered open to harsh white light and the rhythmic pulse of a heart monitor. Lucas sat slouched in a chair beside him, hands clasped, worry carved deep into his face. When he saw Ethan stirring, he shot upright. "Hey, you're awake," Lucas said softly. Ethan blinked, disoriented. "Where?" "Hospital. You collapsed after—" Lucas's voice trailed off. He didn't need to finish the sentence. It all came flooding back. The arch of roses, Vanessa's words, the cruel laughter, Derek's arm around her. His stomach twisted. He stared up at the ceiling, numb. "How long?" "2 days." Silence pressed down between them. Lucas leaned forward. "I wanted to tell you before you saw it yourself, but it's everywhere, man." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean? Everywhere?" Lucas reached for his phone, hesitated, then handed it over. The screen lit up with notifications. Hundreds of them. Video clips, gossip headlines, reaction posts. The top video was titled, "Bride Humiliates Groom in Wheelchair at Altar." He tapped it. There he was, on screen, his nervous smile, his trembling vow, her cruel words ringing like a slap. 1,000,000 views. A flood of laughing emojis. Comments scrolling too fast to read. "Bro, don't—" Lucas started. But Ethan kept scrolling. "She's a queen for walking away. I feel bad, but that was brutal. Imagine getting dumped because you can't walk. This guy's life is over." His throat closed. He pushed the phone away. Lucas's voice was gentle but firm. "You don't have to read that garbage. People are heartless." Ethan stared at his motionless legs beneath the blanket. "They're just saying what everyone's thinking." Lucas leaned closer. "No, that's not true." But Ethan barely heard him. His mind had already slipped back in time. Their first date, late summer evening. Vanessa laughing as they raced down the boardwalk eating ice cream. That night on the highway, headlights swerving, tires screeching, the brutal impact that changed everything. Lying in the hospital bed, bones shattered, machines keeping him alive. Vanessa crying, clutching his hand. "I'll never leave you," she whispered back then. Rehab. Endless hours of struggle. She visited at first, bringing flowers, smiling through the pain. But slowly, something changed. Her visits grew shorter. Her smile became thinner. Her eyes wandered to her phone more often than to his face. The hints were there. He just hadn't wanted to see them. A soft knock broke through his thoughts. A nurse entered to check his vitals, her eyes flicking to the phone on his tray. "I saw the video," she murmured. "I'm really sorry, Mr. Turner." Ethan forced a nod. After she left, Lucas sighed. "There's more. The garage. Some customers canceled their appointments, said they didn't want to get involved. Others, they just don't show. People are weird about stuff going viral." Ethan's stomach dropped. His garage was his livelihood. He'd built it from nothing after the accident, a way to prove to himself he wasn't broken. Lucas hesitated. "And Vanessa?" She gave an interview. Ethan's head snapped up. "What?" Lucas pulled up an article. Vanessa's face filled the screen. Perfect makeup, crocodile tears glistening. "I couldn't keep living a lie," she said in the interview. "I stayed out of pity for too long. It wasn't fair to me. I needed to choose happiness." Ethan's hands curled into fists. She wasn't just done with him. She was rewriting the story, painting herself as the victim. She's good at this, Lucas muttered bitterly. She knows how to make people believe her. For the rest of the day, Ethan drifted through a fog. Doctors checked on him. Lucas stayed as long as he could. When night finally swallowed the room, Ethan was alone with the glow of his phone. He scrolled through the comments again, each cruel line cut deeper than the last. She upgraded. Can't blame her. Dude should have known better. Wheelchair Groom. He hovered over the power button, ready to shut it all off, when a headline stopped him cold. Breaking. Vanessa and Derek engaged, just 2 weeks after viral wedding disaster. The image below it showed Vanessa beaming, Derek's arm around her waist, a massive diamond flashing on her finger. Ethan's breath caught. His hand tightened around the phone until his knuckles went white. For the first time in days, the fog of shame thinned, and something sharper rose beneath it. Not tears, not despair, resolve. His eyes hardened as the screen glowed in the dark. She'd humiliated him once. She thought it was over. She was wrong. Rain hammered against the tin roof like an angry drum. Water pooled outside the garage doors, flowing through the cracked pavement. Inside, Ethan wheeled slowly across the empty floor, the echo of his wheels filling the hollow space where engines once roared. Workbenches stood untouched. Tools hung neatly, unused. The smell of oil and steel that once felt alive now clung to the air like a ghost. On his desk, a stack of bills lay fanned out like a losing hand of cards. At the top sat a foreclosure notice, bold, red, impossible to ignore. He picked it up, rain dripping from his sleeve, and stared at the due date stamped across the top. Less than 3 weeks. His garage, the dream he built after the accident, the place that proved he could still create, still lead, was slipping through his hands. He tried to shake the heaviness from his chest and grabbed a wrench, rolling toward a half-disassembled pickup. "Work," he muttered to himself. "Just work." But before he could start, his phone buzzed. Another email. He tapped it open. "Ethan, sorry. We can't deliver parts this month. Your name's all over the internet. Corporate doesn't want the bad press. Hope you understand." He read it twice. His stomach turned cold. Another buzz. Another email. "We're suspending our contract until the situation blows over." "It's not personal." His hand slipped, the wrench clattering against the concrete. Suppliers were pulling out. They saw him not as a hard-working mechanic, but as bad PR. The viral wedding clip wasn't just humiliating, it was poison seeping into every corner of his life. The garage door creaked open. Lucas stepped in, shaking off his umbrella. "Man, this rain is brutal. You okay?" Ethan forced a nod. "Yeah, just busy." Lucas eyed the empty floor. "Doesn't look busy." Ethan didn't answer. Lucas leaned against the workbench. "Listen, Ethan, I've been thinking. You should sue her." Ethan looked up sharply. "What?" "Vanessa. Defamation. Public humiliation. You've got a case. She dragged your name through the mud, and now your business is tanking. Why should she get away with that?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "I'm not suing her." "Why not?" "Because I'm not going to be that guy. The bitter, broken ex trying to get revenge. I don't want their money." Lucas threw up his hands. "This isn't about revenge. It's about survival." She made this mess public. She's still out there doing interviews, playing the victim. Meanwhile, you're drowning in bills. Ethan turned away. The rain outside grew louder, matching the storm inside his chest. "I'll figure it out." That night, he rolled down the dimly lit street toward his house. The neighborhood was quiet, except for 2 voices drifting from a porch across the street. "Such a shame," a woman whispered. "He was always such a nice boy." "Yeah," another replied. "But you can't blame her. Who'd want that kind of life?" "Poor guy." "It's sad." "Really?" Ethan froze in the shadows, every word slicing deep. Poor guy. He turned and went inside, closing the door softly behind him. In the living room, he stared at the wall of old photographs. There he was, standing tall beside a shiny red race car, grease on his hands, a grin stretched ear to ear. There he was, holding trophies, hoisting Lucas up after a big win. Vanessa beside him, laughing. He rolled closer, fingertips brushing the glass. For a moment, he let himself remember what it felt like to stand. The roar of engines, the rush of speed, the weight of his own body firmly planted on the ground. Something hot stung his eyes. He turned away before the memories crushed him completely. The next morning, he visited the rehab center for his scheduled appointment. Mara, his physical therapist, met him at the door. She was upbeat, as always, auburn hair tied back, sleeves rolled up like she was ready to take on the world. "Hey, stranger," she greeted. "You look like you've been through a storm." He gave a dry laugh. "I have." "In more ways than one." She guided him into the gym, adjusting straps on a machine. "I heard about the wedding," she said gently. "I'm sorry," Ethan shrugged. "It's done. I just need to focus." Mara studied him for a moment, then said, "Your legs may be weak, Ethan, but your will isn't. Don't let this break you." He met her gaze, something flickering beneath the fatigue. She gestured to a sleek metal frame in the corner. "By the way, we just got accepted into a new mobility program. Exoskeleton training. It's early stage, but it's changing lives. If you're ready to push yourself, this could be big." He stared at the frame. A machine that could help him stand again. A distant, impossible dream suddenly felt a fraction closer. "I'll think about it," he said quietly. As he left the rehab center, the rain had stopped. The streets were damp, the air cool. For the first time in weeks, he felt a tiny spark. Fragile, but real. When he got home that evening, he found a thick envelope on his doorstep. Legal seal on the front. He tore it open. Inside was a letter from a high-powered law firm representing Vanessa and Derek. "You are hereby notified of a lawsuit for defamation and emotional damages. Your public behavior and online posts have caused harm to our client's image." His eyes raced down the page. Lawsuit, damages, court date. His hands shook. His jaw dropped. They were
Thunder
suing
rumbled
him.
low in the distance.
The letter
as
slipped
Ethan
from his
sat at
fingers
the
onto
kitchen
the
table.
floor. The legal
tiny
letter
spark
spread out
inside
in front
him
of him
flickered
like
in
a
the
death
dark.
sentence. Lucas paced the floor, his jaw tight. "They humiliated me," Ethan whispered, his voice trembling. "And now, they're suing me?" Lucas slammed his hand on the table. "It's twisted, man. They ruin your life, and then play the victims? No, no way." Ethan stared at the lawsuit again. Phrases like defamation, damages, emotional distress jumped off the page. His hands curled into fists on his lap. For weeks he'd absorbed the blows. Silent. Numb. But this was different. "No more," he muttered. Lucas stopped pacing. "What?" Ethan looked up, eyes hardening. "I'm done being their punching bag." The next morning, Ethan rolled into the rehab center before sunrise. The gym was nearly empty, the air cool and still. Mara raised an eyebrow. "You're early." He looked at the exoskeleton machine in the corner and said, "Let's do this." What followed was brutal. Straps tightening around his legs, muscles screaming with every forced step. He fell, hard, twice. Sweat poured down his temples. He clenched his teeth through waves of pain that felt like fire crawling up his spine. Mara pushed him, but never coddled him. "Get up," she said firmly each time. Again. Day after day, he returned. Morning. Night. Rain or shine. Slowly, agonizingly, something changed. His balance improved. His steps grew less shaky. One day, he took 3 full supported steps without falling. And for the first time in a long while, he smiled. Meanwhile, Lucas introduced him to Sophie. A young lawyer in her late 20s with sharp eyes, a quick tongue, and an aura of quiet fire. She shook Ethan's hand firmly. "I watched the video," she said. "What they did was disgusting. And this lawsuit? It's intimidation, plain and simple. But they picked the wrong guy to mess with." Ethan couldn't help but smirk. "I like you already." Sophie dove headfirst into the case. She spent hours combing through Derek's company filings, gossip blogs, and leaked emails. One evening, she slammed a folder down on Ethan's desk, eyes blazing. "Bingo," she said. "Derek's company has been cooking its books. Hidden transfers, fake shell contracts. If we can prove this, you can countersue. Maybe even bring criminal charges." Ethan blinked. "You're serious?" "Very. They wanted to bury you with legal games. But this could bury them." For the first time since the wedding disaster, Ethan felt something he thought he'd lost. Control. He reopened his garage, even if suppliers had turned their backs. He worked with what he had, fixing neighborhood cars, salvaging parts, doing honest work. Lucas filmed him on his phone. Ethan tightening bolts, rolling under cars, adjusting engines, all with quiet determination. One night, Lucas suggested, "Why don't we post this? Show them who you are." Ethan hesitated. The internet had already crucified him once, but he looked at the footage. Him working, laughing with Lucas, taking a few assisted steps in the exoskeleton, and realized this wasn't about pity anymore. This was about powering through. They posted the first video with the caption, "They broke me, but I'm not staying broken." The response was immediate. Thousands of comments, people with disabilities sharing their own stories, mechanics and racers offering support, strangers saying he inspired them to keep fighting. He posted daily. Therapy milestones, late-night garage fixes, motivational talks. The same social media that once mocked him was now rallying behind him. His follower count exploded. Journalists started calling. Sponsors whispered interest. The sympathy groom was becoming the comeback hero. One night, as rain tapped against the window, Ethan sat in the garage editing a new video. His hands were still streaked with grease, his muscles sore from therapy, but he felt alive. His phone buzzed. Unknown. Number. "If you want to bring them down, meet me tomorrow. Don't tell anyone." His eyes narrowed. A chill ran through him. The message came with a location pin. A small cafe on the edge of town. No name, no explanation. Lucas leaned over. "What is it?" Ethan locked the screen. "Nothing, just something I need to check out." For the first time in months, his heart beat not with dread, but with anticipation. The storm outside swelled as he stared at the blinking message. Someone was about to blow this case wide open. Rain slicked the streets as Ethan rolled toward the dimly lit diner at the edge of town. Neon lights flickered weakly over the entrance, humming like a bad omen. He pushed open the glass door, the bell chiming softly. Inside, the diner was nearly empty. A few truckers hunched over their coffee. A jukebox played faint music from decades past. Ethan rolled to a corner booth, his pulse quickening. A woman in a hooded coat slid into the seat across from him without a word. Her eyes darted around nervously before settling on him. "You came alone," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "Who are you?" She lowered her hood just enough for him to see her face. Tired, pale, but determined. "My name doesn't matter. I used to work for Derek, as his assistant." Ethan's breath hitched. She leaned closer. "I saw everything. Derek's company isn't just shady. It's rotten to the core. Money laundering, offshore accounts, fake charities. Vanessa knows about it. She's part of it." The diner suddenly felt smaller, darker. Ethan's mind raced. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because they burned me too," she said bitterly. "When I refused to fake signatures, they fired me, threatened me. But I kept copies." She slid a manila envelope across the table. Ethan opened it. Bank records, internal memos, email printouts. His hands shook. This could destroy them. Her eyes hardened. Be careful. Derek will do anything to silence anyone who gets in his way. You've already embarrassed him once. If he thinks you're a threat, she trailed off, glancing toward the door. You're in danger now. Before he could ask more, she slipped out of the booth and disappeared into the rain. That night, Ethan, Lucas, and Sophie huddled around the garage's office table. The documents spread out like puzzle pieces. Sophie's eyes gleamed. This is gold, she said. With this, we can counter-sue and expose everything. Derek and Vanessa won't know what hit them. Lucas rubbed his chin. But they'll hit back, hard. Ethan clenched his fists. Then we'll hit harder. We're not just fighting for me anymore. We're exposing the truth. They spent hours strategizing. Sophie planned the legal angle, how to file quietly, subpoena records, and time their move for maximum impact. Lucas tightened security at the garage. Ethan doubled down on therapy, determined to stand, literally and figuratively, when the day came. 2 days later, Ethan arrived at his garage early. The air felt wrong. The front gate hung open. Spray-painted across the wall in blood-red letters were the words, "Stop or burn." Shattered glass crunched under his wheels. Tools were scattered, tires slashed, machines overturned. Lucas arrived minutes later, furious. They did this. Derek's guys. No doubt, Ethan called the police, but the officers who came barely took notes. We'll file a report, one said lazily. But without cameras or witnesses, there's not much we can do. Ethan recognized the look in their eyes, the look of men who didn't want to cross someone powerful. As they left, Lucas slammed a wrench on the table. They're trying to scare you off. Ethan looked at the wreckage around him. His livelihood, his dream. But beneath the shock, a steady fire began to burn. They're underestimating me, he said quietly. That night, the garage was silent again. The rain had stopped, leaving the air heavy and still. Ethan stayed late, fixing what he could. The smell of oil and burnt rubber clung to everything. Around midnight, as he wheeled toward the office to shut off the lights, he smelled smoke. His heart skipped. He turned and saw orange light licking at the far wall. "No!" he shouted. Flames erupted from the storage corner, spreading fast. Someone had doused the area in accelerant. Ethan wheeled frantically toward the fire extinguisher, coughing as black smoke filled the air. His eyes watered. He reached for the extinguisher, but a falling beam crashed beside him, blocking the exit. He tried to turn, but his wheels snagged on debris. The smoke thickened, flames curling around his workbench, his tools, his files, everything. "Help!" he yelled. But the night swallowed his voice. The heat seared his skin. He coughed violently, vision blurring. His arms shook as he tried to push through the wreckage. Finally, his strength faltered. He collapsed forward in his chair, the roar of fire all around. The last thing he saw before everything went black was the wall of flames closing in, consuming everything he had rebuilt. Fade to black. The steady beeping of machines filled the hospital room, blending with the sterile hum of fluorescent lights. Ethan's eyes fluttered open. Smoke, heat, fire. The memory hit like a punch, and he gasped for air, coughing hard. "Easy, man. Easy." Lucas's voice broke through the haze. He was slumped in the chair beside the bed, eyes bloodshot but relieved. "You're okay. I got there just in time. Another minute and—" His voice cracked. Ethan stared at the ceiling, the weight of everything pressing down. The garage, the lawsuit, the humiliation, the fire. "Maybe they're right," he rasped. "Maybe they're too powerful." Lucas leaned forward, grabbing his shoulder. "Don't you dare. That's what they want you to think." Ethan looked away, his jaw tight. For the first time, the fight in him flickered. Later that day, Mara entered the room, carrying her usual confident energy. She set a small potted plant on his bedside table. "Hospitals are too depressing," she said softly. Ethan gave a weak smile. Her tone shifted, firm and warm. "I've seen you fight harder than anyone. You think the fire changes that? You think your legs define your strength? No. You do," he swallowed, her words sinking in deeper than he wanted to admit. As she left, Sophie walked in, a folder clutched to her chest. "I've got good news," she said, grinning. "The judge approved our case. We have a trial date. 3 weeks. Ethan blinked. "That soon?" "It's happening," she said. "We're going to expose them in court." For the first time since the fire, something sparked behind Ethan's tired eyes. Over the next week, something unexpected happened. A local journalist covered Ethan's story. The groom humiliated, the viral betrayal, the garage fire. The video exploded online. Comments poured in from around the country. "This man deserves justice. I'd give him my tools if I could. Let's help him rebuild." Donations flooded his small business website. Boxes of tools arrived from strangers. A group of veterans sent a check. A family drove 2 states just to help clean the charred remains. Ethan watched from his wheelchair, stunned. The world that had once mocked him now stood with him. Lucas grinned as he unpacked a crate of gleaming new equipment. "Looks like we're not alone anymore." Determination returned like a storm. Every morning, Ethan pushed himself through therapy. The exoskeleton strapped to his legs was heavy and unforgiving. He stumbled. He fell. He yelled in frustration, but Mara never let him quit. "Again," she'd say, "you can do this." Day after day, step by shaky step, Ethan began to rise. His legs trembled beneath the mechanical frame, sweat dripping down his face. The sound of the machine's whirring became a rhythm, a heartbeat of defiance. Lucas filmed parts of his journey, posting them online. The videos of Ethan struggling, then slowly standing taller, reached millions. "Rise with Ethan" started trending. Meanwhile, Lucas and the community rebuilt the garage. They cleared the ashes, repainted walls, installed new equipment. What was once a symbol of defeat became a symbol of resilience. One evening, as the sun set over the restored garage, Ethan rolled in, watching volunteers pack up tools. He inhaled the smell of fresh paint and motor oil. Lucas clapped him on the back. "Looks better than before, huh?" Ethan smiled for real this time. "Yeah, it does." The night before the trial, a knock echoed through Ethan's quiet home. He opened the door to find Vanessa standing there in a sleek black coat, her expression a mix of mock sympathy and icy confidence. "Vanessa," he said flatly. She stepped inside without asking, eyes scanning the modest living room like it offended her. "I came to offer you a way out," she said smoothly. "Take the settlement. Sign a non-disclosure. Walk away quietly. You'll get a nice check, and we can all move on." Ethan let out a bitter laugh. "After everything? You think this is about money?" Her smile sharpened. "Oh, Ethan, you can't win. Derek has lawyers who eat people like you for breakfast. You can't even—" She paused, eyes flicking down. "Walk properly." The words cut like knives. But Ethan didn't flinch. Instead, he reached behind his chair and pressed a button on the exoskeleton brace. With a mechanical hiss, the frame straightened. Slowly, shakily, Ethan stood. Vanessa's smirk vanished. Her eyes widened as he looked her dead in the eye, standing tall for the first time in years. "Don't underestimate me again," he said quietly. For once, Vanessa had no comeback. She turned sharply and left, her heels clicking down the hall. Ethan watched her go, the night air cool against his face. Tomorrow, everything would change. Cut to black. The courthouse buzzed like a beehive. Reporters swarmed the steps, microphones thrust toward anyone remotely connected to the case. Camera flashes strobed the gray morning like lightning. Inside, the courtroom was packed wall to wall. Journalists, curious locals, and people who had followed Ethan's story online. The double doors opened. Ethan rolled in, wearing a crisp, dark suit. His jaw was set, his eyes calm but burning with quiet resolve. Lucas walked beside him. Sophie led the way like a general entering battle. Vanessa sat across the aisle, flawless as ever in a designer dress. But beneath the makeup, her fingers fidgeted. Derek leaned back in his chair, smug, until he saw Ethan roll past without flinching. The bailiff called the court to order. The trial began. Sophie started strong. She presented documents the whistleblower had provided. Bank records, forged invoices, offshore transfers. Her voice was sharp, controlled. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she said, pacing slowly, "this isn't just about humiliation. This is about fraud, deception, crimes hidden behind expensive suits and cruel smiles." She projected emails onto a screen. Derek's name was all over them. The jury leaned forward. Derek's lawyers objected repeatedly, but Sophie countered every move with precision. Then came the moment everyone had waited for. Vanessa took the stand. She started with her usual act. Calm, rehearsed, playing the victim. "I was pressured," she said tearfully. "I didn't know the full extent of Derek's business. I was confused on the wedding day. It wasn't planned." Sophie stepped closer. "Is that so, Miss White? Then can you explain this?" She held up a glossy printed image. Vanessa and Derek, 2 weeks after the wedding, smiling at their engagement party. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Vanessa's mask cracked. She stammered. That was what?" Sophie pressed. "A misunderstanding? A party you accidentally attended wearing a ring he accidentally gave you?" Vanessa shifted in her seat, panic flickering in her eyes. Derek took the stand next, oozing arrogance. He tried to charm the jury, boasting about his business success and painting Ethan as a bitter man seeking attention. But Sophie had laid traps. One by one, she dismantled his story. "You claim you were in Miami during the transfers," Sophie said, pulling out a security camera still. "But this is you, Mr. Hayes, in your office. Same date. Same time." Derek's jaw tightened, the jury murmured. His lawyer objected, overruled. Then it was Ethan's turn. Lucas wheeled him to the stand. The courtroom went silent as he settled into place. Ethan took a breath, looking at the jury, not as a victim, but as a man who had survived fire, betrayal, and mockery. "I never wanted any of this," he began softly. 2 years ago I lost my legs, but I still had hope. Vanessa told me she'd never leave me, that we'd face the world together. I believed her." He paused. "On my wedding day, she walked away, in front of everyone, and the world laughed. They turned my pain into memes. My business crumbled. People pitied me, mocked me. But I refused to let that be the end of my story." Some jurors blinked back tears. Ethan leaned closer to the mic. "This isn't just about what they did to me. It's about people like me. Anyone who's been humiliated, underestimated, or stepped on by those who think power makes them untouchable. It doesn't. Truth matters. Dignity matters." His voice didn't shake. It cut through the room like a blade. Even Derek shifted uncomfortably. As Sophie prepared to rest their case, the courtroom doors opened. A woman walked in, hood pulled back, Derek's ex-assistant. Whispers filled the air. She took the stand, her voice steady. "Everything in those documents is true. I was there. I helped forge some of the records under Derek's orders." Vanessa signed off on transfers. They thought they were untouchable. The defense scrambled, but it was too late. Her live testimony destroyed any remaining doubt. The jury leaned in, rapt. The judge banged his gavel for order as the gallery erupted. By the end of the day, Derek's lawyers looked pale. Vanessa stared down at her manicured hands, trembling. Sophie stood tall, her closing argument ringing like a verdict itself. This case isn't about pity. It's about accountability. The evidence is clear. The testimonies are undeniable. Now, justice rests with you. The judge banged the gavel. We will recess. The verdict will be read after lunch. Camera shutters exploded as people stood. Reporters ran for the doors to broadcast updates. Vanessa and Derek exchanged panicked whispers. Derek's smug mask was gone, replaced with something new. Fear. Ethan sat quietly in his chair, hands folded. He breathed in deeply, letting the noise wash over him. For the first time, he felt the weight shift, not crushing him, but lifting. The battle wasn't over, but judgment was near. The gavel slammed. The entire courtroom held its breath. In the case of Ethan Cole versus Derek Hayes and Vanessa White, the judge's voice echoed, steady and clear. The jury finds in favor of the plaintiff. A wave of gasps, then applause burst through the courtroom before the judge's gavel restored order. The defendants are found liable for defamation, emotional damages, and financial misconduct. Further, Derek Hayes and Vanessa White will face criminal charges related to fraud and perjury. Restitution and compensation will be awarded to the plaintiff. Ethan exhaled slowly. Sophie squeezed his shoulder. Lucas pumped his fist in the air. Across the aisle, Vanessa's face drained of color. Derek cursed under his breath, slamming his hand against the table. The cameras flashed like fireworks. It was over. Outside, the courthouse steps overflowed with media. Reporters shouted Ethan's name. Microphones swarmed like bees. For once, Ethan didn't shrink under the attention. Sophie and Lucas flanked him as he addressed the crowd. His voice was calm, strong. "This isn't just my victory," he said. "It belongs to everyone who's ever been humiliated, underestimated, or silenced. Today, we stood up to lies. And truth won." The crowd erupted in cheers. News coverage spread like wildfire. "Groom wins landmark case," read one headline. "Betrayed, burned, but unbroken," read another. Ethan's face, once the symbol of pity, became a symbol of resilience. Montage. Ethan and Lucas repainting the garage's sign, brighter and bolder than before. Mara cheering as Ethan takes longer strides during therapy. Crowds gathering outside the garage on reopening day, clapping as the doors roll up. A group of disabled veterans visiting to shake Ethan's hand. Meanwhile, justice caught up with the villains. Derek was led out of his luxury office in handcuffs, cameras flashing as he tried to hide his face. His empire crumbled overnight. Vanessa was arrested outside a salon, her perfect image cracking as reporters shouted questions. For a brief second, her eyes met Ethan's on a TV screen. Regret flashed across her face. Not for love lost, but for the empire they thought was untouchable, now reduced to rubble. Weeks later, the community gathered at the town square. A stage had been built, banners fluttering in the breeze. A massive crowd filled the streets. Neighbors, strangers, supporters who had followed Ethan's story online. Ethan rolled onto the stage. The crowd fell silent. He adjusted the microphone. "When my accident happened, I thought my life was over. When Vanessa humiliated me, I thought my dignity was gone. But dignity isn't something others can take. It's something you choose to stand for." Applause began to ripple through the crowd. He smiled. "It's not about walking. It's about standing for yourself." Then, slowly, with Mara's support and the exoskeleton strapped to his legs, Ethan pressed the control. With a soft whir, he rose from his wheelchair. The crowd gasped. Step by shaky step, he walked forward to the edge of the stage. For the first time, it wasn't about proving Vanessa wrong. It was about proving himself right. The crowd exploded in cheers, a thunderous wave of support. People chanted his name. Tears streamed down faces. Lucas wiped his eyes when he thought no one was looking. Mara beamed with pride. Sophie clapped like she'd just witnessed history. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan returned to his garage. The building stood taller than ever. Rebuilt, renewed, alive. He rolled through the wide-open doors, the golden light flooding in. Tools gleamed on the walls. Engines hummed softly in the background. Community photos lined the entrance. He paused, taking it all in. The silence, the warmth, the second chance. His voiceover echoed over the scene. Sometimes, the people who try to break you only end up building your strength. Don't let their betrayal define you. Stand, even if it's just one step at a time. He wheeled forward, the sunset stretching long shadows behind him. Share this story to remind someone that dignity always wins. The screen slowly faded to black, the sound of tools and laughter lingering like an afterglow.